Good morning, church. Good morning. That's good. I like to hear that. That sounds good. We always do that where we are. We also have a responsive reading too, do we? I mean, we just must be the same kind of folks, right? It's so good to be here this morning. And I've just several of you that I know, but I forgot your names. But I've got a good excuse. And that excuse is, age is part of the excuse. But when you have a heart transplant, I had a heart transplant almost 3 years ago. And when you have a heart transplant, you have memory problems afterwards. Short-term memory problems. I think I had short-term and long-term memory problems, but anyway, we did. And for some of you who are here that don't know who I am, which sometimes I don't know either, I preached here. My wife and Syl and I and our children were here 35 years ago. Wow. In fact, I think we left here, we came here in 81. I should have figured this up before I came. We came here in 80 or 81, which was it, Syl? Yeah, okay. And we left here in 88, so that was 30 something. Anyway, 30s, in the 30s, right? Long time ago. One thing I've learned is that when you're on that side of 35 years, it's an awful long time. I'll never get there. But when you're on this side of 35, you think, where did the time go? Yeah, y'all know that experience. I do too. And we, our children, two of our children were born here. Our twin daughters were born here. And we already had a son, and of course they're grown and married and got kids. I have to brag a little bit. I've got 9 grandkids. So I think some of you are the same way. But we have just great memories of being here. I was too young to know what I was doing in those days. But God, by the mercy of God, we all survived. Well, thank you. Well, thank you.
I came here and gave my life to the Lord when you were here.
That's right, isn't it? That's exact. And
you married Chris.
And I performed a marriage ceremony. Yeah. Yes. So that was a while ago. Yeah. That's don't explain. Don't say how long that was. And I think of I tell you what I did. I tried to write down some names on the way over here today, and I'm afraid to start mentioning names because anytime you do, what happens is you end up forgetting someone. And so I kind of don't want to do that, but I just need to mention, I think of some of the people who have gone on to be with the Lord. And, I really think about that a lot, especially because not just here, but in other places and funerals I've preached through the years. And as you lose those, as you get older and you lose people that you knew and loved. And we had some great people that were here, and they're gone now. And I think we're going to see them someday back in heaven with God. And that's so precious. Let me say this to you guys. There is only one thing that is lasting in life, and it's not your marriage, and it's not your kids, but it's our relationships with our spouses, with our kids, but with each other. And these, I don't know if you think about this, these relationships will last for eternity. We're going to know each other in eternity, guys, I believe. Now, I don't know if I can proof text that, but we are. It's just really been an experience for me to come and be with you and to speak yesterday and be with Chris. There's some of you that we see all the time. Every year I go to Pepperdine, and when I'm there, of course, I've George and Nova and I. I got your names right there. I got your name right there. And Nova and I, we just get together almost every day. We did this last year. Yeah, and it was just so great to hear them tell about the church here and about you guys and what you're doing. And I've just really built a relationship with them. Just from that time there, and it's just wonderful when you have people you've known for a long time and you still have those relationships. Let me say this to you: when you're young, it's easy to develop relationships, And often those relationships will last you all your life. But the older you get, what I've noticed about life is that it's harder to build relationships. I don't know why. If you're any sociologist in here can tell us, but I don't know why that's the case. But you just don't, and maybe it's because we're raising kids or we're doing this or whatever. But it's just like as you get older, and I have had the experience in my life to have had some great mentors, and I just thank God for those things, and some of you have been that. Nick and Lottie, for example, has always been, and I see them. Well, we just saw them last summer. We had lunch with them last summer, and they came down to Paducah, where I'm from. We live in Paducah now. And, when I just think about all of you, I think about you, George, and some of you don't remember George Graves and
Lee. George and Lee.
Yeah, right. Lee, what's the last name?
Graves.
Graves, right. Graves,
Yep.
Lee, right. And so when I think about them, they were here at that time. Folks, I want to tell you, we're just trying to get along, just trying to get through life in a good way, in the right way. One thing I've learned about God, if I've learned anything about him in these 35 years, is that God loves you and he forgives you a lot of faults and weaknesses in your life. In fact, Jesus died so that our ignorance and weaknesses can be forgiven. And that's what we're in this business of doing. We're just trying to live our lives and serve God. And I think when I was here 35 years ago, I was kind of a dumb kid, 28 or 29 years old when we came. And I thought I knew everything. You do know that, right? And none of you have ever been like that, but I thought I knew everything. And so I was going to change this church and make it some kind of great church. It's kind of like Chris does with you now. And as you get older, you mature a little bit, and you realize that what's really important. And I remember, it's kind of funny. I remember here one of the things that I wanted to do when I first came. I don't know if I should tell this or not. Was I thought we really needed to change the pews around. So we kind of, I don't remember how we did them, but that was me. I take responsibility for that. And we kind of moved those around, and I thought, oh man, this is going to be it's going to make us closer in relationships, And now when I look back about those kind of things, those external things that's not what makes the church, is it? I don't care if you're in a barn or if you're in this building. What counts is our relationships with each other. And so as I think about so many of you and the relationship I have, and let me say to you that Chris and I, for some reason in our lives, our lives have crisscrossed through the years. And of course, Chris was a young man here. And did I baptize you, Chris? I think I did, yes. And Chris was a young man here, and then I performed the marriage. And then when I moved down to Peoria, Chris went to school at Lincoln, and I happened to be going to school at Lincoln at the exact same time. So Chris and I kind of really started drawing close together from that. And since those years, he and I have just continued to talk with each other all the time, and I try to get him straightened out on his doctrine all the time. And thank you, yeah. And so that's just been one of the great. Let me say to you, there are two people in my life. Now, every one of us, you do know that there are people in our lives that are mentors to us. And then there are people in our lives that we mentor ourselves, younger folks. And you ought to always be doing that, by the way, always be doing that. Then there's these people in here that someone explained it like this: we all need a Paul, we all need a Timothy, and we all need a Barnabas. And two people in my life has been my Barnabas. One was a friend of mine I've known since college. When I was at Freed Hardeman 100 years ago, and he and I stayed very close. In fact, Chris knows him. And then Chris. Chris has been my other go-to person. If I got any questions, any problems, I always call up Chris, Well, yeah. You know how Chris is. But that's been a wonderful relationship. That's what I want to talk to you about today, by the way. I'm trying to get to it, right? I'm trying to hint to you what I'm trying to talk about. But that's what I want to talk to you about, how important our relationships are. Now, when we were here, there was a lot of kids, a lot of people our age at that time, young folks here. And we did all kinds of stuff. We built a house. And are you Bob? Yeah. You remember building the house? Now, let me tell you this story about Bob, okay? You got to hear this story. We were on the roof one day on this house we built out in the country there. We were on the roof, and Bob was hammering nails, and we were all hammering nails and kind of talking. And all of a sudden, I didn't hear Bob. And I looked around, and he wasn't on the roof. Oh. He fell 8 or 9 feet to the ground. And man, I scrambled down there. I scrambled down the ladder and get down there. I thought, oh my, where we killed somebody. You remember that, Bob?
Fastest you ever moved.
Yeah. Yeah. But you weren't hurt, were you?
No, I cracked a couple of ribs, but I was fine.
Right, it cracked some ribs. Well, don't do that today, brother. Don't do that today.
You're too old for that.
Yeah, don't do that today. Yeah. I just think about, and I don't want to spend all the time with stories, but there were so many great stories here of things that we did together, and just the relationships that we had. We've also been very close to Roger and Wanda Gieske through the years, and it's just unbelievable. And I miss the ones who are not here, and I've been asking about them. About some of them. Ned Riffle was another great guy, and so I've been asking about some of those people. But that's just some of the things that you as you get older, you really think back toward. Now I want to begin this morning. Well, first of all, I want to kind of share with you something about my life. As all of you know, because there was a lot of prayers that came from here. Almost 3 years ago, I had a heart transplant, and through the years, Chris, as I've studied and tried to really become, an informed person in terms of biblical teaching and understanding God, there was a time in which I really didn't think God interacted in our lives very much. You know how you study and you get to saying, well, maybe God's just sort of set us here. I wasn't a deist, if any of you know what a deist is, but I was getting close. I thought, well, God just put us here and we do our thing, and God's up there off playing golf or something. And I've changed my mind on that. As I look back through my life, I see so many places, so many crossroads where I could have gone the wrong way, or where God brought people into my life that made the difference. All through my life, and I know all of you had people like that. And because of that, you look and you say, wow, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Now, I can't prove this. This is not something I can prove to you, but when I got sick, there were several things that happened. I could have died. But it so happened that maybe it was an coincidence, right? But it so happened that I was in exactly the right spot, so that there was somebody there, so that I didn't. I went they sent me by ambulance to Nashville, to St. Thomas, to the hospital there. I was so sick, and I had cardiac myopathy. And I thought it was silly. I said, you guys, I'm feeling fine. I'll just drive down there and save the money for the ambulance, give it to somebody else. And no, they said, you've got to go in the ambulance. And so, I talked and joked with these guys on the way down to on the way down to Nashville. It was about a 2-hour drive. They drove about 90 miles an hour. And I thought, well, why are you driving so fast? It's a big deal. So they got me down there, and they got me in the hospital, and they got me a room, and cardiologist came in to talk with me. And I said, well, I'm just feeling fine. And all of a sudden, bang, I fell out of the bed. I was sitting on the edge of the bed and just flopped down on the floor. My heart quit beating. And the next thing I remember is that my whole body was up in the air because they'd put those paddles on me, and if you've ever had those that happen, you tingle all over. And when I came back to, that's what they were doing. I thought, what in the world, And I could tell you, and I don't have the time, but I could tell you several things like that happened to me. And you think, well, if they would have listened to me, I'd be dead today. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm kind of glad they know. The lesson there is always listen to your doctor, right? That's the lesson there. I want to start today by telling you a story. And what I'm going to tell you is really a story within a story. And I want to start by telling you that story because I want us to look at what God calls us to be. We talked a lot yesterday about discipleship and about how that as Christians we need to be serious about God. And when I was a younger preacher, what I thought that meant was show up here on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night, and then come on Tuesday night to go out and do visits, and then go out and do Bible studies, and go out and do this, and have this program and that program, so everybody's busy. I've kind of changed that a little bit. There was a woman named Edith Wilson Macefield who was born in 1921. She died in 1908. In 2008. Okay, 1921, 2008. Edith grew up in Seattle, Washington. When she was about 16 years old, she left home. She was a very bright child, very bright student. She actually learned four languages that she spoke fluently. German was one, French was one, and some Russian, I think she learned. But just really had a high IQ. She also was proficient in music. She loved music. She played, I think, forgot what instrument she played, but she just was a brilliant person. And she was very unsatisfied with her life, even as a teenager. And so she left home at 16, and guess what she did? She joined, it was right before World War II, she joined the U.S. Army. And so she got in the Army, and they transferred her to England. And when she got to England, they discovered that she was underage to be in the Army, so they kicked her out on the street in England. And so what happened to this woman was somehow she got involved with British intelligence, and she became a spy for the British, whatever that CIA. They're not CIA, but
MI6.
MI6. That's right, isn't it? Thank you, sir. And they sent her to Germany as a spy during the war. And while she was in Germany, she played music at some of these big parties where Hitler was, and she met Hitler. And she sort of hobnobbed with a lot of the big shots there. And but after a little while, she was discovered. They found out that she was a spy, and they sent her to Dachau, one of the Nazi concentration camps. And while she was there, she helped 13 children escape and got them back to England. And the story, of course, is that she survived. She survived the concentration camp, moved back to England, and when she moved back to England, she got involved. There was a lot of children after the war that was, homeless, and she built an orphanage right outside of London, and she brought all these children in, and cared for those kids. In the 1940s, she decided to come back to America. I'm sorry, in her 40s. In her 40s, she decided to come back to America and take care of her aging mother in Seattle. And so she moved back to Seattle to do that. Mother passed away. She lived there. She knew a lot of important people. She knew a lot of movie stars. She knew almost everybody in the military, higher ups in the military in that time. So she was a very influential person. She could get a lot of stuff done. Anyway, she grew older there, and the rest of the story is about the very last 2 years of her life. When she was in 2006, 2 years before she died, there was a developer that came in, and they decided they were going to build some high rises where her house was, and so they came to her and said, we want to buy your house for you. We're going to build these big high-rises. She said, no, I'm not interested in it. She said, my mother died here, and this is where I plan to die. And they said, oh, no, you don't understand. We're going to offer you a lot of money. So I think they offered like $100,000 and then like $400,000. Finally, they got up to $700,000. And she just said, no, I'm not going to sell this house. So what they did was they built all these high-rises around that little house on 3 sides, okay? And by the way, someone told me that, and I don't know if this is true, you have to verify it, but someone said that, I actually read it on the internet, so it has to be true, right? Someone said that that the movie Up, any of you seen that movie Up? That the movie Up is actually based somewhat on her story, because the high rises around this guy's house. And so anyway, they did that, and so as they were building the high rises, the manager of the building project had the responsibility to go around to all the homes that were surrounding the high rise and make sure everybody was happy. You got to do that because you don't want to get a lot of complaints. And so he dreaded to go to her house because there'd been this conflict between her and these developers. And he left her to the last house to go to. And so he went up, knocked on the door. She came to the door, and to his surprise, she wasn't bitter. She wasn't angry. She was very friendly and just invited him in and, just really started building a relationship. Now, you see, I want to stop right here and say to you that I know too many Christians that are so angry and mad at the world and at anybody who's mistreated them that they actually end up alienating. They actually end up not having an influence for good on the world and on people. I can tell you so many stories about that, but I don't have the time. But anyway, he got to build a relationship with her, and he realized she was aging. She was 80, I think 87 at the time, and still lived on her own. She had no family. She had outlived 3 husbands, and that's pretty good, right? She had a child that died when he was 13. And so he got to doing things for her, like he'd bring her groceries, he would mow the grass or whatever for her. This very kind fellow. And as she got ill, she had cancer a little bit later. And so he ended up doing all kinds of stuff for her. He'd even come in the house and take care of her and see that her meds were given correctly. And just did all these things for her. It's an amazing story what he did. And she said at the very end of her life when she was getting ready to die, she said, I am very content in my life because I know I have one person who will be there with me when I die. And he was. And that story really hit me when I read that. Because, that's what Christianity is really about, isn't it? It's not about how many people you go out and baptize today. Now, by the way, when I was in the 70s, I thought, man, in fact, I thought I had to come to church and baptize, all these people, make sure we got all these people in the church. And I remember feeling guilty if I met someone on the street and I didn't, witness for Jesus. I thought, I'm not doing my job. That's not it, guys. That's not it. What it is allowing Jesus Christ to live in you in your everyday life with whoever God decides to bring into your life. That's all it's about. Amen. Now, I happen to believe that if Christians do that they're going to become effective. And the world is going to look at us and they're going to say, those people have something. What I've noticed is that they support one another in their relationships. They're there for each other. And when I think about this whole thing, I think about the little book of 1 Peter. And there's so many things in 1 Peter that really talks about this. But the one passage I want to look with you at is in chapter 2, beginning with verse 11. I'm reading from NIV. He says, Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and strangers. That's what we talked about yesterday. Did you know that our home is not in this world? Our home is in heaven. I'll tell you what, as you get older, you'll remember that. You'll know that more. You'll appreciate that more. Our relationships here are temporary, and don't let yourself get preoccupied with this world and the things of the world. Because what Peter is saying to these people is you need to see yourself as foreigners. In Hebrews chapter 11, he says there that Abraham and those people in the Old Testament faith, that they were looking for a better home. And then he says a heavenly home. So, that's what we have to understand about our lives, is that we're here for a little while, and then we're going to be gone. And I wish I would have told my children this more when they were younger. Don't live a life and then at the end of your life say, well, I regret. I regret that I didn't do this. I regret that I didn't love my family more. I regret that I didn't serve God. Don't do that. Now, if you did, that's fine, because God forgives us. That's the most important part. Amen. That God forgives us. But what I'm saying, and even if you're, however old you are, start right now saying, I'm going to be the best person I know to be, and I'm going to try to influence people around me just for good. And so he says to Peter here, he says, I urge you as foreigners and friends, he said, abstain from sinful desires. In other words, live your life the right way. The sinful desires that war against your soul. And then he says, live such good lives among the pagans. Live such good lives among the pagans, that though they may accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. That's a powerful little passage about what God, I believe, is calling us to do. He is calling us to go out here and live in this world and treat everyone you come along. Do good things. And you probably know this passage in James 1:27. He talks about what pure religion is. Guess what it is? It's taking care of people who are homeless, orphans, and widows who are helpless. And then he says, of course, keeping oneself unspotted from the world. But you see, that's what the Christian life is really about. I talked yesterday here about how the Christians have often failed. I'm talking about historically, how the Christians have often failed to be those things. You hear these terrible stories in the Middle Ages about Christians killing Jews and Christians killing each other, burning each other to the stake. I mean, they did, because they disagreed with each other. What kind of religion is that? That's how we function, that we're mad at people, on the other side of the aisle there. I preached for a church one time, not here, but I preached for a church one time where when you came in, there was these folks on this side and these folks on this side, and never did they meet. In other words, they didn't like each other. They just didn't like each other. And the whole time I was there, they were fighting. This group were kind of together, this group. How did we get to all that? How did we get to that point where in our thinking about Christianity, where that we forget those precious teachings of God, of Jesus, about loving one another? Yesterday, I was so moved. Who was it showed the video there about love? You got that? You still have that?
It's on the computer there.
Yeah. Let's end with that. The time's getting close, so let's maybe end with that. I had a bunch of other stuff to say, which is always the case, right? And when I was here, I probably preached about 45 or 50 minutes, because you folks thought you didn't get your money's worth if I didn't. Now where I preach, they want me done in 20 minutes. But anyway, I want us to end with seeing this, because I thought it was powerful. And it calls us home. It calls us to this spiritual life. By the way, our heavenly home is already. It's not something we're going to have when we die. We already have it. Our salvation is already. It's just that we make a transition at death. But right now, we are in that heavenly home. because it's a spiritual home. And it's because of our spiritual relationships we have with each other. So as soon as Chris gets this ready, we're going to watch this. It's about 2 minutes or something, so it's not long. And then we'll quit at that point. We love you guys. Just thank the world, everybody. And someday we're going to be together with each other in eternity. That's what we live.
We love you with the love of the Lord.
Thank you.
Maybe we can visit you at your church.
Yeah, well, you guys come on down. We'd love to have you. Now you understand you're going to be in the deep south, right? I thought the south was kind of south of Memphis. You know, we always think of Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi. No, I'm in the deep south, right there. It's a whole different culture.
David, in my family, my dad, his unit cleaned up Dachau. He drove one of the bulldozers, bulldozing bodies into the mass graves. He never could talk about it. One day, he did. The inhumanity to man, that's why. Love is the fire. I stand to praise you. I fall on my knees. My spirit is hungry, but my flesh is so weak. I like the fire in my soul. Fan the flame, make me whole. Lord, you know where I've been. So light the fire in my heart again. I feel your arms around me as the power of your healing begins. You breathe life right through me, like a mighty rushing wind, like the fire in my soul, and the flame make me whole. Lord, you know where I stand. Lord, you know where I've been. So light the fire in my heart again. Please be seated. I thought I could sing that song. It just brings too many memories of that time at your college when you had 400 kids singing that song. Brings back. This next song, you may or may not know, but it's a prayer. And very appropriate as we go into our time of communion, our time of celebrating Jesus in our life, in our lives, being that sacrifice that we read earlier in the service. Father God, just for today, help me walk your narrow way. Help me stand when I might fall. Give me the strength to hear your other God, just for today. Help me walk your narrow way. Help me stand when I might fall. Give me the strength to hear your call. Make my steps be